What's up, action takers, the community of doers? I hope you're doing fine. Episode 14, week 14, 52 weeks. Here we come. Now, there are 5 things that I think have a very, very interconnectedness to how we pursue our goals, our objectives, or how we carry out our life in an intentional way. I wanted to look at these 5 aspects and we ask ourselves, how do they relate to one another? What comes first? What does what and why and when? What are these 5 things that I want to look at? They are motivation, discipline, commitment, habits, and consistency. So how do they interrelate? Or what is their interconnectedness? And what comes first in terms of their hierarchy? So, this is what I think. Or even before we go to that, I would like to kindly request you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We are all about looking at life from a different perspective. We are all about asking ourselves, what is the alternative way to look at life? Looking at those things we might be overlooking or those things that we might be ignoring. That is what we do here. Rethinking the conventionality of how we go about our life. We are continuing to build this community. So please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. If you feel that this is important, I invite you to join us as we grow this community. Now, the 5 aspects that I want to look at, I'm going to mention them according to how I think they follow one another so that we can see the interconnectedness and also how important is it for us to understand how they relate and how to apply them in our day-to-day life. So, I think the first one is motivation, followed by commitment, then discipline, consistency, and the last one, habits. So I'll just give a very brief context on each one of them, and then we look at how they relate and how we can apply them in our day-to-day life. So the first one, motivation. Let me just give the definition for context so that we can see the interconnectedness and how they relate and how to apply them. So motivation, by definition, is the internal or external drive that compels an individual to take action, pursue goals, and engage in behaviors that lead to a desired outcome. It is a fundamental psychological process that influences how people think, feel, and behave, shaping their decisions and actions across different areas of life. So in a nutshell, it's just the idea of a very strong drive towards a certain aspect of life. So that feeling or that urge that you have that is so strong that you want to achieve something, with the secretion of that, the hormone, the feel-good effect of how much you want to achieve something. So, we have 2 types of motivation that I can mention. There is a lot of motivations we can talk about. People, by motivation, you can say motive. So the motive of doing something. Why are you inclined to go a certain path? Why are you inclined to do something? So there are a lot of things there are a lot of different aspects of life that can motivate people. So let me just look it from a very broad perspective, and I'm gonna use two very obvious example, but it's just to look at it from a very broad perspective. But just understand that there are very, very many things that can actually motivate people to do something, or people do things depending on quite an array of motives. So the two that I want to look at, two among many, is intrinsic and extrinsic. So intrinsic, by definition, motivation that comes from within an individual, driven by personal satisfaction, curiosity, or sense of accomplishment. So intrinsic is that motivation that comes from inside you, from your own self as an individual. The personal satisfaction that you want to accomplish by doing something. What you want to feel by accomplishing that thing within yourself. The other one is extrinsic. By definition, we always say motivation that is driven by external rewards, such as money, recognition, accomplishment from outside, or something you're doing to avoid a certain consequence. So the outside aspect that motivates you to do something is what we call the extrinsic motivation. Now, the other aspect that I'm looking at is commitment. Commitment. By definition, what is commitment? A pledge or promise to do something, demonstrating a firm dedication to a particular course of action. It is a psychological attachment or binding force that drives individuals to stick to their goals or duties, even in the face of challenge. Very key, even in the face of challenge. In summary, commitment is doing what needs to be done, regardless if you feel like it or if you don't feel like it. Doing it because it needs to be done. You do it when it's convenient, you do it when it's not convenient. Don't do it when you not only do it when you feel like doing it, but you do it because it needs to be done. Regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the feelings that you have towards that thing. Do it at all costs. That is commitment. We have a couple of different aspects of commitment that we have. Personal commitment, the things that you commit to do with regards to what you want to accomplish in your life. You have to do them. If you're committed to a certain set of personal commitment, you do it regardless of if you want to or not. If you commit that you want to develop your capacity in your own career or in your knowledge or in your intellectual capabilities, if you're seeking knowledge and you've said probably to wake up at a certain time and to take that extra hour in the morning for reading or research or something, some days I bet some days you will not feel like waking up. And that's where commitment kicks in. Regardless if you feel like waking up or not, you wake up because you need to, for you to grow that intellectual capability that you want to build. If at all you're not a people's person, sometimes you just a bit not that social, and you want to increase your client base, you have to be uncomfortable, regardless if you want to do it or not, to approach more new people for you to be able to create that what you want. Personal commitment. What are those things that you're committing to do at a personal level to increase your horizon in matters, progress in your different aspects of your life? Interpersonal commitment. Commitment that you make with people, business partners, romantic relationships, family relationships, those things. Professional commitment, that is purely at a professional level. In your job, in your business, those commitments that you make, very key. social commitment, and so forth and so forth. The third thing is discipline. By definition, discipline, the ability to control one's emotion, behavior, and desire in the face of external demands. To achieve a specific goal, it involves maintaining consistent effort, adhering to established rules and guidelines, and exercising self-restraint to avoid impulsive action. That is discipline. The act of following a set of rules radically without fail. A set of principles that you follow through regardless of the external things that might want to sway you around. You remain steadfast, focused towards that path. A couple of aspects about discipline. We can have self-discipline, is that aspect. The ability to regulate one's behavior, emotion, thoughts. So it is being in charge of your own life, the different aspect of your life. You are in charge. You don't go with the flow. You do things for reason, for a certain objective within a set of principles. Parental discipline, from parent to child, those rules and guidelines that you put. Academic discipline, workplace discipline, and so forth and so forth. You need discipline. In a moment, we are seeing how they interconnect and how to apply them in our pursuit of the life that we want. After discipline, we go to consistency. By definition, consistency, the steadfast adherence to a particular behavior, action, or standard over time. It is the act of maintaining the same level of performance, effort, or quality in all endeavor regardless of the external circumstances. The maintenance of a specific standard of doing something over time regardless of the external influence. So how long can you maintain those standards? How long can you follow through those set of principles? How long can you do that thing that is supposed to develop or to produce certain objective or certain outcome? It's a question of time. How long can you remain within those set of principles enough to see the outcome? The last one is discipline. It is habit. After consistency, habit. By definition, what is a habit? A habit is a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. It is a behavior that is repeated frequently enough to become automatic, requiring little or no conscious effort. So an action that you do long enough within a set of principles, it becomes automatic. You require very less effort, conscious effort for that matter, to actually execute that action. And it's actually difficult to stop. So that is the most important thing about habit. That if you set good habits, the same way it is difficult to stop bad habits, the same way it is difficult to stop good habits. So that is the beauty of forming habits. Because if you have good habits, it's difficult for you to actually stop those good habits. So how amazing is that to know that when you form good habits, it's actually going to be difficult to stop them. So guess what? You're gonna still continue compounding all the benefits. And we're gonna continue reaping on the dividends from those good habits. That's interesting. Now, how do you form habits? How do you form a habit? There are quite a number of aspects that I can look. The way we build habits, one is through trigger. There is something that is going to trigger you to start doing a certain kind of action. Be it a motive, probably it might be an outcome that you want, probably it might be an inspiration from whatever thing that might have inspired you to start doing that action. It might be influence from your surrounding, from your friends, from a mentor, or that kind of a thing. It might also be peer pressure. So we are looking at it from 360 degrees, all aspects that can make you or can trigger you to initiate a certain kind of action. So that is the first stage of forming a habit. There has to be a trigger. There has to be a trigger. So for you to form good habits, understand what is triggering you to start initiating certain kind of actions, and how, or the repercussion of those actions, so that you can tell, are they good habits or not? Because good habits produce good outcomes. Bad habits produce bad outcomes. So that's how you actually measure a habit. Is it good or bad? It's about the outcome. The next thing is routine or behavior. So when you are triggered to start or to initiate a certain action, now you start developing a routine of doing that thing on a day-to-day basis. So it becomes a behavior. You triggered, you initiate an action, then you start doing it on a daily-to-day basis. You can be triggered to start an action or to initiate reading, getting into books, self-help books, personal development books, books in your own industry. Then you start reading on a day-to-day basis. What are you doing? You're forming a habit of reading. You are triggered or inspired by knowing that it is important or reading is beneficial. Then you start doing it on a day-to-day basis. You now in the journey of creating a habit of reading. Now, so when you develop that routine of every day you're doing this action that was triggered through inspiration, influence, for that matter, then you start getting the rewards from that routine behavior. You start getting rewards from that routine behavior. So the reward, if it's a positive, you will know, and if it's negative, you will know. But in this case, we are talking about those positive things. So we are restricting ourselves to those positive. But I don't want us to be ignorant to the fact that this thing can also cultivate negative aspects. But let's focus on the positive. The other one now, the last one is repetition. After you've seen the reward, now you just apply repetition. Let me just read. Repetition is the consistent performance of a routine over time. Consistent performance of a routine over time. So all those aspects, the four of them, a trigger triggers you to initiate an action. That action, you develop a routine behavior to do that action. You experience the rewards from that action, and then you repeat for you to keep on getting the rewards from that action. Now, after having seen motivation, commitment, discipline, consistency, and habits, very important aspects. We've had them so many times, but I want us to make sense out of those aspects of our lives. We've already seen what each one of them means or entails clearly. So how do they relate, and how do we apply them? How they relate. This is how they relate. First of all, you are motivated to initiate a course of action in your life. motivation. Different things can motivate you. We've seen that already. After you are motivated well enough, now you make a conscious decision to be committed to that which motivates you. So the initial thing is motivation, then you make a conscious decision to be committed to that motivation or to that motive that you have obtained. When you are committed, now you apply discipline. The discipline of following through that commitment regardless of the circumstances around your life. When you apply the discipline, then you go in by being consistent on that discipline. After that, through that consistent discipline towards a commitment by a certain motive, you form a habit. You form a habit. A very obvious way of undertaking certain actions, that you are able to take certain actions with very, very minimum effort. They are actually automatic. And the most important thing that we have already seen, it is difficult to stop the habit. So now, it's all about being motivated, committing to that motivation, being disciplined in that commitment, being consistent in that discipline, and forming the habit which develop the outcome. So how do we apply that? I think with that is self-explanatory. So how we apply is identify good motivation. The motivation to be better, motivation to grow, motivation to build strategic relationships, motivation to develop in your career, motivation to be the best version of yourself, motivation to build long-lasting, deep relationships, motivation to grow and progress. When you develop those motivation to be better or to be a better version of yourself, commit to the course of action to address that motivation. This is how we apply. Commit to that motivation which provide what you want to be. Then, be disciplined in that commitment. Being disciplined in that commitment. Then, have the consistency in that discipline. Then form habits. Form habits that out of doing them, you're actually going to produce the outcomes that you wanted to, which motivated you to take on in the first place. Thank you very much for sticking up to this point. I believe now moving forward, motivation, commitment, discipline, consistency, and habits are not vague words to you. You clearly understand what they are and how to apply them in your journey towards your best self. So let's go implement this moving forward. So it's all about motivation, commitment, discipline, consistency, and habits to get the outcome. Always remember to show up for your life, and see you on the next one.